We're going to cover some top tips for drone cinematography today, and I thought it'd be interesting to put together a video specifically on how to use your drone for those kind of sort of cinematic looking shots. Now, I don't profess to be any type of expert with drones, and it's something I've only just recently got into, but I come from a filmmaking background, and what's sort of really interested me is that a lot of people that seem to be using drones come from maybe the remote control sort of model airplane and helicopter sort of background, and not necessarily from a filming perspective. So I thought what would be useful is to break it down into some top tips that will cover some areas of cinematography that you can incorporate into your filmmaking and into making films, specifically using drones to make the most of your footage. So we're up here today and we've got the DJI Phantom 3 with us. Fantastic drone. I thoroughly enjoyed using this, only just really scratched the surface of it. Now what I'm not going to go into today is things like camera settings and stuff like that. There's plenty of other videos about camera settings, flying your drone, taking off, landing, all that sort of stuff. What we're looking at specifically is sort of cinematography techniques and using your drone and the camera on your drone to achieve some really sort of stunning aerial visuals. The first tip that we're going to look at is deciding what time of day to shoot at. Now we're up here on Dartmoor, which is a national park within the UK, and it's a really nice, beautiful, sunny day, and we're bang in the middle of the day, so we've got quite harsh shadows. Now, typically with cinematography, you'll hear the word golden hour used a lot, and this is typically the hour after sunrise and the hour before sunset. What we have then is kind of a beautiful golden soft looking light, which lends itself to not just people but also landscapes, look a lot more dramatic, look a lot more beautiful. Now that's not to say that you can't shoot at other times of the day, but typically shooting in the middle of the day, especially if it's a bright sunny day with very little cloud cover, can lead to a very flat looking light, and sometimes you're not going to get the best looking shot. So definitely consider what time of day that you're going to shoot at. So the next tip is about showing your subject within the frame. And what we see a lot of in drone footage, or I've seen a lot of in drone footage, is people starting with the subject in the frame and then flying over it. There is no level of excitement in the shot. There's nothing that's being revealed to me as a viewer. So what's actually better than flying over an object and having it in frame to begin with is actually to do the reverse of that and start with the subject outside of the shot and then fly over it as a reveal. And you can do this as a pull back. Works really well. Gives your audience something to look at and gives them a level of anticipation of what's going to appear in the shot. Very simple technique to use, but very effective. So with drone cinematography, very different from traditional camera work because we're usually limited to quite a small physical space. Even if we're using things like dollies or cranes, we're still limited to a sort of limited range of movement, whereas with drones we can cover hundreds of feet in very little time. So what's really important to do is to really look at your environment and try and look at it on a large scale and work out what your movements are going to be before you shoot it. Now we're actually at a location here where we've got what's called a tor, a small hill in the background. We've got a large lump of rock which extends out of the landscape, and what this is going to really allow us to do is when we get the drone up there is to take advantage of a sort of parallax effect where the foreground moves a lot quicker than the background, and this is something that adds interest to shots, it adds depth to shot. Remember, we're working within a two-dimensional medium and we're trying to create the illusion or create the feeling of 3D space. So trying to have foreground and background elements within a shot makes it look a lot more dynamic. Don't just feel you have to use drones for everything, okay? You can combine them with other types of shots, so locked off shots or off a tripod. Using drones not just as a drone but also as other movie making tools is a really good way of making it look even more cinematic. It's also a good way of taking away from the fact that it's a drone. It doesn't always have to be aerial, it doesn't always have to be miles high. Actually what you can find is closer to the ground can be a more effective type of shot. We can use them as dolly shots or as crane shots and jib shots, and what they allow you to do, because they're obviously not connected to anything, is achieve really long versions of that. And actually even with the Phantom 3 that we're using, that has got a gimbal system in. So I'll actually hold that in my hands with the motors off, of course, and use that as a mini gimbal. So we're going to use this area here to try and pull off a little shot with not just foreground and background, but also using different types of shot. And then when we get to the editing suite, we can cut all those shots together and hopefully we'll have a really kind of effective mini sequence there.